So, I've been thinking for some time that I wanted to make a YouTube channel where I do more political videos because the state of British politics right now is absolutely fucking terrible, and Boris Johnson is undeniably the worst Prime Minister that we've had in generations. And, you know, the Conservative Party have, for a sizable portion of the last 10 years that they've been in power, just been the worst. And so I wanted to talk about that and talk about how the left seems to be ineffectual at mounting an effective opposition. And then Russia decided to start a war. So I guess we're going to talk about Ukraine instead as my first video on this channel. Yep, as you can see, this is a map of Ukraine, and despite what Russia was saying earlier in the week that they would be helping out pro-Russian separatists in these two regions here, they've actually been shelling numerous cities and have been moving troops and tanks in from Donetsk and Luhansk, but also from the Crimea, which of course they annexed in 2014, and from allied Belarus. So yeah, Russia is attacking on multiple fronts. This is not a drill. We are here. This is happening. What does that mean for the future? Well, unlike the other wars that we've got involved with in the last few decades, where it has been, us fighting militant forces in some Middle Eastern sandbox, this time we're actually going to be, or this time the conflict involves a well-armed, well-funded, and well-trained army. And at least for the time being, the United Nations, NATO forces aren't gonna leave the borders of their countries. So at the moment, it's the Ukrainians on their own. Now, chances are that the UK and US and other NATO nations will continue to supply armaments to the Ukraine, but won't take an active role in that. Now, that's probably gonna piss Russia off. It's going to piss Putin off. And the other thing that we're going to do is obviously put a lot of economic pressure on Russia. It's worth noting, I've seen video footage during the day that Russian people are not happy with this, and that they don't like this, and don't like the fact that this is going on. They're going to protest, but Russia has also been arresting people who protest. So, you know, there's no doubt about it. Putin is a dictatorial autocrat, and at this stage, clearly power mad. I don't think this will lead to nuclear war. I don't even think it will. It may lead to actual conflict between Western nations and Russia, but that seems to be later on down the line at any rate. I don't think we'll get involved at the moment. So what does that mean in the short term? Well, they're clearly pushing from three fronts. They've already missile striked a number of targets across different cities and destroyed airports. So they're cutting the Ukraine off. Now, a lot of people are going to start fleeing, if they haven't already, across the border into Poland and into Romania. People aren't going to want to stay here. Russia is then going to be left fighting the army. Now, a lot of people are either going and conscripting already, and the reservists that the Ukraine has for its army have been activated, but we'll see how long the actual conflict here lasts. but it seems crazy to me that Russia would actually be able to take the whole country. Realistically, what'll happen is I think Russia will consolidate on the eastern flank of the country, along the lines of the river, and they will bully the western flank of the river. So should I say they will bully the eastern half of Ukraine to do what it wants, whilst this part effectively just becomes part of Russia. What is that going to do economically? I mean, in the long run, there are resources that Russia can extract from this land, but from a practical point of view, in the short term, this is going to stretch Russia financially and militarily, whilst simultaneously taking a kicking from the European Union and the US in terms of economic sanctions. What does it do once it's consolidated this power? I think Russia will bring back this character, Viktor Yanukovych, who was the pro-Russian Ukrainian Prime Minister who was exiled in 2014. He was exiled to Moscow after being ousted due to mass protests. So I think we're going to see Yanukovych get reinstated potentially as a puppet for Russian control. I don't think it's going to be very popular. It's going to lead to a lot of dislike, but I think that seems quite likely. His successor, Pietro Poroshenko, who was himself succeeded by all these Russian names, Vladimir Zelensky. Zelensky's made very clear that the people are going to fight back. Poroshenko said to the BBC earlier today that he's concerned that Western countries are only going to apply economic sanctions and not take seriously the Russian threat. He says that he thinks that NATO boots need to be on the ground. I don't know if that will happen. Certainly, I don't think that's going to happen in the early stages of this conflict. But we're not talking about militias. We're talking about well-armed and well-funded armies. This could be quite a drawn-out conflict. I suspect this will go on for months, potentially years, and as that kind of expands and unfurls, that will probably give us a better idea for what is going to happen. But yeah, I mean, in the short term, this is the sanctions that the UK has just announced. All major Russian banks will have their assets frozen. Good. Stopping of export of high-tech equipment and oil refineries to Russia. I mean, this sanctions... Oh, so we may also implement similar sanctions on Belarus. Cool. So we haven't cut off SWIFT payments. SWIFT is an international monetary system, but Boris Johnson saying that nothing is off the table. There is this potential to do that. So we're certainly talking about doing that. I would imagine that this is going to be very similar kind of breakdown that we'll see from Joe Biden. I think he's due to do a press conference fairly shortly. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But yeah, what a time to start doing political commentary right in the middle of the worst land war that Europe has seen since 1945 potentially. Yeah, hopefully we can approach these things rationally, but I think the time for diplomacy, at least for the moment, is off the cards, and that's entirely on Putin's head. And we will see what happens. I'll probably make more videos on this as the picture evolves, but day one of the Ukraine conflict, and Russia has gone for an all-out offensive. Watch this space.